Hey you guys, it's Teresa and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my thoughts on this heartache of a book called The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Now, let's just kind of get into it before, I start crying already. For those of you guys who don't know, this essentially follows the myth of Achilles, as you can clearly tell by the title, the image on the front, all that fun stuff. And Patroclus. How do you pronounce it? I never know. Like, it tells me a million times, but my mouth refuses to, get the words to work. But essentially, the Song of Achilles follows Achilles and Patroclus as they kind of go through their youth into the Trojan War, and where Patroclus inevitably follows Achilles into the Trojan War. And if you guys haven't read the myth yet, you probably shouldn't watch this video because I'm gonna make it as non-spoilery as possible, but you kind of know what happens. It's a Greek tragedy, and it's Patroclus and Achilles. So, but my first thoughts on it was I was really intrigued. As you all know, I am a huge Greek mythology slash nerd. I will eat up anything you tell me about Greek mythology, especially when it's a little truer to the original myth and doesn't erase any homosexuality that's happening in Greek culture and within the characters. Because right now I'm rereading Edith Hamilton's A Classic Tale, and oh my goodness, it became so hetero that I was like, no, Apollo did not cry over his best friend. He cried because he accidentally killed his lover. You just know that it's that's not the case. I also wanted to read it, but I wasn't I wanted to be in the right mood for it. It came out a while ago and I wanted to buy it, but I wasn't sure because I was still in school. I didn't want to be bogged down by work and 2 jobs and a social life. I still have a social life, it's just not as prevalent at the current moment. So finally got the chance to read this, and oh my goodness, I'm not only one kicking myself for deciding to go to school, which took away from my reading of this, but also kicking myself because I didn't read it when I did have free time. So now I have this, but it's fine, it's here, we're good. Now what I did like about this book, well, there's a lot of things that I really liked. One of them being the painfully slow burn that happens for Achilles and Patroclus, thank you. And it was so cute. You could just tell that they really grew into each other, if that makes sense. Not only as friends, but also as lovers. There's just that slight hint of gay that becomes more prevalent throughout the novel. And the next thing you know, it's not a slight hint, it's blaringly obvious. I also really enjoyed Achilles' character. Growing up, I had read the myth so many times over, and it was a lot of he didn't seem very likable to me. He wasn't that enjoyable to read. He just seemed like a really big fat bully who, when he didn't get his way, decided to let everything fall apart. And I was kind of happy to see him die when I first read the myth, because I was like, you're kind of an asshole, so we're just gonna let you do it. But Achilles' and Patroclus' relationship was it was so cute. I just loved the slow burn, and I loved how they just kind of fell into each other without meaning to, and it was so heartbreaking. And I loved how it stayed true to the myth and didn't erase homosexuality in actual Greek culture, and explored more so of how the Greeks saw homosexuality. I believe there was a scene where Odysseus makes a comment about it, and he was like, we're not judging, but if it makes you uncomfortable, you can leave it after the war is done. So I also enjoyed how it gave how the book gave Patroclus more of a personality and a backstory, because in the myth he was just kind of the guy who wore Achilles' armor, ran off to help save the war because Achilles didn't want to do it, and then got killed. So to have him be this pivotal part in the book and to have his own kind of narrative was so nice to read, because it just humanized both him and Achilles from these mythological beings that just that weren't there until the myth happened, and then all of a sudden they are there with personalities and backstories and motivations. It was such a beautiful book. The prose was written so well, everything had so much thought put into it, and I got lost in the novel so easily that I think I finished this in the span of 2 days? A day? I didn't mean to, but it was just so easy to get lost in Madeline Miller's prose that I just was so floored when I was done. And despite this kind of sad ending, and no, this is not a spoiler, because if you've read the myth, you should know what happens, and if not, then why are you reading the book before you've read the original myth? So, whatever. The myth, despite it being so sad, it ended on such a happy and hopeful note, which it was I had I was in tears because it was so happy, but it was so sad. But at the same time, you couldn't help but feel like it wasn't bittersweet. It was just hopeful. Like you can just imagine them being content with one another in the afterlife, and there was no problem about it. And I was just, oh, I love it so much. Now the things I didn't like, and there was only like one thing. So after the thing happened, and if you know what I'm talking about, there are two things. But the thing that happened for the other thing, like the pivotal thing, where the book essentially kind of ends, was that it was still written in Patroclus's, Patroclus? Patroclus. One of the two pronunciations, Patroclus's point of view, and this was written in first person point of view, by the way. And I struggled, blah blah blah. I struggled really feeling for Achilles and like seeing his pain and his problems with the entire situation, because it was written just through Patroclus's kind of like his point of view, his feelings and everything. So I felt very separated from Achilles, which was, I think, kind of a loss, because a lot of what had happened for Achilles to go and like do what his entire sole purpose in life was to do was kind of missed there. We didn't get to see it. We just got to see kind of Patroclus's interpretation of the entire situation. And I think that having not seen it from Achilles' point of view, even for like a chapter or like a paragraph, was really kind of not a letdown, but it took away from the overall meaning of like their relationship, I feel, because we only saw it through one perspective. We didn't get to see or exactly know how Achilles was hurting and what drove him to be like, to go ahead and fulfill his destiny and die. Because there was a scene where Achilles was talking about a dream and how he felt like relieved when he had killed Hector, because it meant that he could die. And when that scene actually happened, I didn't feel Achilles' relief, because I was watching it from Patroclus's point of view, and it was very detached, very heartbroken. But I wanted to see, at least for that situation, Achilles' kind of like relaxation of realizing that he's going to be back with the person that he loves. So I would have liked to have seen that. Overall, I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. Would highly recommend. I love this so much. Like, I found myself, even after I had read it, rereading scenes in the book. I still do every now and again, just to go ahead and like relive it again. And I don't want to reread this book yet. I think I'm going to wait a couple of months so I can like, it's no longer fresh in my mind and I can start crying again. But definitely something that I want to reread. I definitely need to pick up Circe, and I believe the paperback, because I want them to be like buddy with like paperback. I believe that one comes out in February, so hopefully I'll have my hands on that. But honestly, I would read anything that Madeline Miller makes, and I really hope she's writing another Greek myth book. Low-key hoping it's going to be Medusa, because Medusa's myth has been rewritten so uglily. Uglily? I don't know how to say that word. Uglily. It's been written in a way that I think takes away from a lot of the characterization of the women of the story, essentially, because there are things in the myth that aren't lining up with kind of Greek culture. So I really hope she does Medusa, but I'm waiting and super excited for Circe. So yeah, but that is it for my thoughts on Achilles, the Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I'm surprised I didn't cry during this thing, because I almost cried writing my like notes for it. You can tell how much this book has destroyed me. But if you want to see more of my tea talks, I should have a playlist on my channel. Like these videos if you like seeing them. I have one more tea talk for the month, and I think you're going to like that one, because I am in love with the book, even though I'm not yet done yet. And other than that, I do upload twice a week, every Saturday and Wednesday, unless something happens, in which case you should be following either my Instagram or my Twitter, or both, which is @BookishTherese. That tells you actually where what's going on and why I didn't upload that day. But other than that, we'll talk to you guys in the comments. Have you guys read the book? Did you like it? Did you have any other Greek myth related books you want to recommend me? I'm not very picky with them, honestly. And if you do, leave those below. Other than that, I'll see you guys next Saturday, it's Wednesday, with another video. And I'll talk to you guys in the comments until then.